is present. And hear from public. Do we have anybody that wants to speak from the public? Going once? Going twice? Done. Thank you. First selectmen's briefing. Chris, I'll give you my notes afterwards. Okay, we'll need a motion tonight to add an executive session for the purpose of discussing two items. One is potential litigation and the other is a personnel issue. So if I could have a motion to do that, and it would be at the end of the meeting because we cannot record a executive session.
Okay.
Couldn't quite hear you, Bill. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Let's get back to my Zoom meeting. Public Works, along with seasonal mowing, they're getting roads ready for paving, including Bicknell Road. They're doing work on culverts, catch basins, grates. We had a beaver issue at Sellish Pond that's been resolved for now. Special equipment was needed to open up the sluice. They added grates, and the beavers, for whatever reason, have calmed down their activities because they were just mad for packing rock and dirt into the pipe. So they've been doing that for some time.
Anybody see my backyard?
Shall I have?
We never have.
Shall I have them go over there? Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and I don't have it on my little list here, but we have a Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission has put together an MOU for Public Works to and I think I brought copies. Let me just check. We're not going to talk about it at this meeting, but I'd like to talk about it at the next. I want to make sure you have the opportunity to read it. It was in draft form when I first saw it, and now it looks like they might have finalized it. But it's for what Public Works should do when they're going to do work in the town that applies to things that could affect the wetlands and watercourses. So they've put together best practices and also when they want to have updates from our Public Works foreman, director. So what I'd like you to do, I'll provide that to you, and we may or may not have a special meeting to look at it because I want to make sure that whatever needs, well, I guess we don't need a special meeting because it goes into effect July 1st, supposedly. And the question. No, but what I know, because I just got it, I mean, I got it this afternoon. My question will be of council, is this something the Board of Selectmen should be approving? Or is this something, it looks like they've drafted it just for directly to Casey. And that doesn't feel right. What they put in it doesn't seem to be an issue. Oh, there's a couple of things that I did see. Says the purpose of this MOU is to document the understanding that the Public Works Department and outside contractors under your direction need to provide road maintenance and repair on an ongoing basis within the right-of-way of all town roads and upon other municipally owned land within the town boundaries. It just seems like an odd statement because that is what they do. So, but they have some other things about discussing their plans with Casey, discussing the plans with their agent and the selectman's office and obtaining necessary permits before proceeding. There doesn't look like there's anything onerous in it. It just looks awkward. And I think it's actually trying to lay out how the relationship needs to work. I know that when we went in to take care of basically an emergency situation at Sellish Pond with the beavers and the water overrunning the road and taking the materials on the road and putting them down into the runoff. That was not a good situation. And so Public Works went in and they moved part of a tree that was down in the water blocking things and tried to clean it out a bit. And we had some of the people who like to take pictures and monitor the activities at the pond were quite upset about that because the pond drained as it should have. And of course, it refilled within less than 24 hours. So they were concerned about the wildlife there, and I understand that. So anyway, I'm going to refer that to you so that we can do a review of it. And if you like, I can send it off to town council with a question about, do you see anything onerous in here? I didn't know if you want to review it first before I do that.
I'd be happy to read it, but
Okay,
I'd also like to see his comments.
okay. Transfer Station Committee, I can't remember if I told you that Chuck Atkins had notified me that he won't be able to participate in this committee.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So our current members are Keith Lipker, Casey McHugh, and Casey is following up with an Ashford resident who has transfer station experience to see if he's interested in joining the committee. I'm looking for other names of people to join this committee, at least one. We just need another person. And this person should have transfer station experience. You know, without that, you're not really able to see everything that needs to go on. So I don't know, Keith, if you happen to know of someone with that kind of experience.
No,
All right. So Casey was doing another follow-up this afternoon, so I'll hear from him. Spectrum Charter is implementing a network enhancement project in Connecticut that will allow for 1 gigabyte symmetrical speeds up to multi-gig symmetrical speeds. So Charter's upgrading its existing network, nodes, amplifiers every 1,000 feet. Their work will be performed from 11 p.m. I'm sorry, 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it's at night. Their work in Ashford is going to start tonight and run through June 6th. And then on June 9th, they'll be working June 16th, 17th, and July 14th. They anticipate there will be 8 to 14 trucks working, and they will have 2 supervisors in the town. They've also notified every one of the customers who will be affected. I asked them if there was anything that they could tell me about what they're doing for safety during those nighttime hours on those roads, and I haven't gotten a full answer back yet. So I thought I'd check tonight and see what they've got set up. We have a list of the roads that they're going to, and in the sequence they're doing it. 300th anniversary town committee meeting is needed. And Bill, you and your wife are the chairs, co-chairs, if I understand correctly, for that committee. So Joan Gobin and Val Pepin came in to see me. And what we're trying to do is determine monies. The meeting is needed to determine monies for the 375th and whatever's left in the 325th and whatever's left in the 300th. And we know that Sherry Much has, if I understand correctly, has already found a publisher to print the books and come up with money's understanding of what that will cost.
Has anybody seen the draft of the book or anything?
I haven't. Some people have.
I did run into Val after Mass yesterday. Her and Linda and I, we had a quick talk, so
Yeah,
we'll schedule a meeting to get together.
that's great. Thank you. And actually, I'd like to bring a proposed restructuring of funds pertaining to town celebrations to the next Board of Selectmen meeting for you to review and revise as needed, and then on to the Board of Finance, because they're the only ones who can create a fund or adjust the funds.
As I recall, the original funding was when we were on Linda was chair and I was a member of the 275th.
Yeah.
And we got a stipend. And then all of the rest of the funds were gathered through private
Donations.
enterprises to gather. I think we have about 15,000 now.
Just under 15,000.
Yeah. But yeah, that process is fine.
Okay.
More transparent.
Okay. Family Day planning's going to start next week. Okay, it'll be in September, and we're avoiding everybody else in the planning for Family Day. NECOG update. Based on 10 years data, NECOG Safe Street for All program has identified the intersection of Route 44 and Pumpkin Hill as number 6 on their list of top intersections requiring remediation in this area. And I'm doing a follow-up with Jim, our agent and who's running this, and plan to attend their June 25th planning meeting.
Where does the intersection of 44 and 74?
Actually, what I have is, I'd like them to take a look at the intersection of 44 and Tremco Lane and 44 and Route 74. So, and I know that we had an accident out here about 3 weeks ago, and at the gas station. So that's one of the factors. I've also been looking into, and Chris has helped me with this, with some of the signage that we need to put up. You know, we'll talk at another date with Alex about where the crosswalk lighting stands, but we do have some options that are solar powered that are being used in other municipalities. And Bill, I think you pointed me to one. I took a look at the ones over where in Pomfret. Pomfret? Yeah. Pomfret School. I did find them. Actually, Jeff did when he looked the second time. Okay. On the grant, I think there was a question from the Board of Finance about our grant request, and you have the paperwork there. And what was submitted, where have I got this? The grant request was submitted February 10th, well before our budget was finalized.
You talking about the steep grant?
Yes, I'm very sorry, steep grant. And what we have is we had a, what is it, 20-something thousand, I don't have that here, but a 24,000, I think it was, 24,690 something, matching piece. We had the 80,000 that was approved through town meeting. And we had, we had to put up a matching component. So the 80,000 for that. And then we put up, I have this right here. Thanks. And so what we had done was, instead of having the whole 80,000 come from through the process that we had for it, we also had NIPS fund money and money in the DPW budget. So originally, we had said that the NIPS money that we knew at the time or what we had collected in the prior year, was $7,827. So we had that on the grant application, plus 16,000, I think it's 874 and 31 cents was from the DPW budget. Well, through the budget process, we reduced the DPW budget. And what we also discovered was that we checked the collections for the NIPS fund and found that we have $20,098 in the NIPS fund. So we'll be sending an adjusted grant submission, which won't be a problem, reflecting $20,098 from the NIPS fund as part of that extra matching, and 4,603 from the DPW. I just had it here, it was written on pipes and culverts, because we anticipate they could be, that's some of the work they'd be doing.
And as I recall, the NIPS fund had to be spent regarding the transfer station.
Exactly. So are there any questions about that? I see Christina frowning.
Well, I'm confused about the timing of it all. So
At the time,
is the monies are allocated in the budget that starts July 1, is that right?
now it does, yes. But we didn't know what that budget was going to be. We thought it was going to be higher than it was. Because we submitted this February 10th, and it was prepared prior to that.
And then our budget that was approved at referendum.
Yep.
Included a capital project that was this steep project.
The 80,000.
Correct.
You asked about the 24,000.
I know. And so I'm just wondering, did we accurately reflect the funding of this project in the budget? That's my question.
Yes,
Because there's the extra 20,000 that is not was not in the budget package.
but it wasn't
Right.
part of the capital, it wasn't part of the capital package.
NIPS money
State
isn't
project?
coming.
NIPS money is a line, it's a revenue we bring in.
I understand that, but we outlined the capital project, we outlined here's the cost and here's the funding. And we said, the steep project is what, 400,000?
No,
The number, roughly?
the,
We said that's the cost, and then we said, what's the funding for steep? 80,000 is gonna come from the unassigned fund balance, which is included the town meeting.
Yep.
And then the remainder was gonna come from. But now what I'm hearing is there's a pocket of money that, is coming from a different source.
what,
I'm not saying it's right or
No,
wrong, I'm just
no,
saying it's news to
what-
me.
what it is,
Wondering, is this the right, did we do it the right way? Do we need to go back to town meeting for anything?
no, we don't need
Go
to,
the Board of Finance for any of this?
no. It's already reflected in our budget. The 400 and, what is it, 4,608 is already in the budget. Okay, that was approved at referendum. The NIPS fund is entirely separate. That's a revenue.
Right.
I don't
So
think any additional town authorizations needed.
No,
Obviously, we need to update the Board of Finance if there's differences on appropriations for funding sources.
I guess, why wasn't it detailed? Did we just not know that we're gonna be funding the next budget, but when we were compiling.
we
the
didn't,
capital
we
budget?
didn't know that we would have that much money in the NIPS budget at that time. We only very recently found that out. Thank God. Because we did not have enough money in the DPW budget after it was cut.
I don't even remember how the state tabulates the NIPS funding. And I know it's like at the end of the year, they give us an adjustment. It's never a figure that we can rely on. You know, they have a formula that they follow. Probably half of the vowels that are picked up in my yard. You're the one?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Catherine, can I make one quick comment?
Sure.
I think what, Chris is saying is, when we're doing a 5-year capital, budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
we try to be as careful as we can with both the, expense side, which is clear.
Right.
And as we know, I usually get all hot and sweaty about the funding side. And what I think she's saying is, I was unaware that there was a NIPS option in funding. And I think so, in the budget, the question is, should it be moving forward, even if it's a question mark? And I don't know the answer to that.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah.
Give me a second. So Christina, when you sent me the budget, this thing,
Yes,
it was for me to put it up on screen?
if you would like, that would be great.
Okay. I'm gonna be kind of fussing with that while we go acceptance of the meetings of May 6th and May 19th. May 19th minutes, I don't think are complete, right? Okay, so I'd like to waive that for right now. Hear from boards, commissions, committees, and this is where you come into play, and bear with me, I just need to do a search here and pull up your thing. And it's a PDF.
Maybe I can give a little background while you do that.
That would be good.
Um,
And can everybody, can people hear? I've got this thing over here.
I think you're fine.
Can everybody else hear? I assume so. Okay, so bear with me while I do this.
Do you want to go back to your briefing and give
Oh.
everybody a heads up on that?
Yes, I'm just to step back to the briefing for a minute. There was a typo in the June issue of the Ashford Citizen. And the typo is on the back page where it's the legal notice. And it is about the tax collectors information here. And it had a mill rate of 346.377. Yeah, so there was, it was just a little typo that incredibly enough, some people caught, considering it's really small print and it's on the very back of the thing. So that is being corrected, and Linda's putting something out on the town website so that people don't completely freak out about having to pay taxes that are much greater than the value of their house or their home.
You know, because we put notices in the citizen and people say that we don't tell them. But then, in fact, they do read them.
All right, I just wanted to hear.
Anywho, so the background on this is in our presentation. I just want to acknowledge the board finance members who came to this meeting. We have Keith Lister, Judy Austin, and Paul Varga. I thank them for taking the time to come to this meeting, which is not our normal meeting day. And I appreciate the board of selectmen taking the time to have this conversation as well. I know you guys are busy, you have a lot on your agenda.
Actually, keep going.
So the impetus for this goes back to March when we were in the heat of the budget conversation. I put forward an idea to the Board of Finance to say, you know, a lot of the factors that made this year's budget discussion difficult are going to be in effect next year. So we kind of know to some extent what's coming down the pipe. And it's very difficult to have conversations about change from February, March, which is essentially our budget conversation. And I often hear, and actually really what made me want to start this conversation was there was someone in one of the budget conversations, member of the public, who was like, well, why don't we do X to fix, you know, to be more efficient? And you can name it, it's all ideas, right? And but I can't do anything on March 15th when we have to approve a budget by March 27th, right? You can't make a big giant change happen in a couple weeks. So that was where I was coming from, saying to the Board of Finance, like, should we create a committee that brings stakeholders from the community together and start working now with looking ahead to the budget so that we can maybe find some creative solutions, ideas, do the research that we don't have time to do from February to March. Can we work together as a community and bring different stakeholders together to come up with new ideas? So that was the committee idea that I brought forward in March. It was asked in the Board of Finance meeting that I bring back to the Board of Selectmen. That was the more appropriate place to begin this conversation. So I then waited until the budget passed because I didn't know, you know, how much time, if the budget didn't pass, was going to be taken by that. Thankfully, that passed. So then I brought forward the request to have this conversation today. Are you having a hard time finding it?
Yeah,
You
I
want me
am.
to resend it to you?
Yeah, would you
Would
please?
it pop up?
That'd be great. Did you send it to Chris and then you sent it to me? I can't remember. I think that might have been the case.
Let's see. So presentation, to your first selection at Ashford Town.
Yeah.
So I just resent it.
Let's see if it comes up. Thank you. Oh, it was on the agenda. Okay. All right. If you would take us through this and tell me when to change pages.
Yep, we can skip to the next one. Okay, so this next one just outlines what the challenges are that we know that are probably going to be in place for next year's budget. So because our state budget is a 2-year budget, once it gets approved, we will know what the ECX grant money is supposed to be for next fiscal year. As of, with the Lamont's budget, we are projected to be down 3.3%. Now, there may be adjustments because the budget hasn't been finalized. I think it's gonna be finalized by the end of the week, right? They have a deadline.
Yeah.
So we will have a harder
Yeah.
number. We will know exactly what that number is gonna be.
So I'll let you know that Pat Boyd sent me something at 7:01, town-run funding for the state budget. So I don't know if they've already gotten to some conclusions.
Better numbers sooner. Taking what's in Lamont's budget with the caveat that it's not final yet. That's about 110,000 less money that we're gonna receive from the state next year than we did this year. And so that's 2 years in a row of 3%. For Region 19, Region 19's budget, and I think I see the link in the next slide. They have a page with very detailed projections. Let's stay on that other one. Yeah, we'll get there. Go back. Oh, Catherine. Catherine, can you go back to the previous slide?
This one?
Yeah, stay right there. Thank you.
Okay,
So Region 19's budget has a very detailed slide that goes through the projections over the next several years. So for the next fiscal year, our share of the Region 19 budget is expected to go up 6.62%. So with those items happening, where our revenues going down and our share of Region 19 budget going up by something much more significant than inflation, hopefully. Hopefully inflation's not getting that high. We're looking at basically 1 mil right there. So if we don't do anything to the town side, we don't spend any additional money, we don't spend any additional money on the Ashford school budget, we're still looking at least 1 mil next year. Okay, so then you can go to the next. The next slide.
okay.
This just shows, again, because Region 19 does have a pretty detailed,
I don't know why it's moving on its own.
we're trying to hang out there. So because Region 19 does include some pretty detailed projections, I included them here. And you can see in this graph, it just visualizes what we're looking at in terms of our share of budget never goes below 4% through 2030. So this means, you know, when I look at this, what I see is, you know, Ashford and Willington are gonna continue to absorb the reality of what's happening in Mansfield. Their student population has dropped significantly, so 22% over the last 10 years. Ashford and Willington's decline, we are also declining, but only by 11 to 12%. So what that means is we are growing in comparison to Mansfield, Ashford and Willington. So we're going to have to shoulder more and more the burden of that Region 19 budget. So, and these numbers bear that out, right? This graph showing, and we go as high as 12% in 28, 29. I guess I could look on my screen too.
Christine?
Yeah.
Those projections that Region 19 have put out, where are they getting those from? I mean,
Yeah, and that's a good question. You know, and obviously it can't be 100% accurate, right? There's going to be some changes.
No.
But I'm sure that they're on the tail end of the birth rate, right? Because they're educating the oldest students. So they can see what's coming at them more so in terms of enrollment. So, you know, I think some of it's probably guesses and may not be accurate, and probably the further out you go, the less accurate it becomes. So I don't want to get, you know, I don't want to look at this and go, oh my God, you know, 2 years from now, it'll be the worst budget ever, 12% increase. We can't say that for certain. But I think that's why I kind of talk about the demographic piece. You know, UConn's enrollment has increased substantially, they have not built housing to accommodate that. So Yukon students have pushed out into the neighborhoods of Mansfield more so than they have in the past, and that's pushed out families. And I, you know, I can even look at, Mansfield OBGYN back in 2015, because this year my daughter was born, opened up an office in Hebron. And I think they saw the numbers, right? They saw the birth rate, they see it, and they went, we gotta go open up in another town to try to grow our practice. So I think what's happening in Mansfield, you know, is significant, and it might be mitigated by the apartments that are coming online, but that's not gonna happen overnight. But suddenly families are gonna come back to Mansfield.
I was reading an article, there's over, besides what's in construction or was just finished within the past year, and the next 5 years, they're talking about over 5,000 apartments being built.
Yeah, and
thinking it
that
might
will
project
help.
even higher.
That
I'm
will
wondering if that's figured into the,
I doubt that that will be in there in Region 19 estimates, but it will help.
Yeah.
Okay.
sorry,
So that's okay. The other piece with Region 19 to keep in mind as well is that Columbia students now can choose between E.O. Smith and Graham High School. So, Columbia tuitions their students in, and I guess in the past, they pretty much exclusively went to E.O. Smith first, and then maybe some of the tech schools. But now those students are going to have a choice. And I think there's concern on the part of Region 19 that, you know, more competition means kids, and that's going to, again, mean we have to shoulder the burden more as a member of the district. If they have fewer students tuitioning in, that's less revenue on their part. So that's the point of view of Region 19. And then if you look at the next slide, so the next slide is just the fact that we should, something to keep in mind is that we're going to have a revamp. And there are good and bad parts of it. And the good news, we're in a better position than some towns because, like Willington, their last reval was 2019. Then they got a reval this year, and their property values went up like 50, 60% on average because they didn't absorb any of the growth in the housing market that happened post-COVID. So they got hammered, and that it's aggravated their budget process. They were already in a bad situation, and that it made it worse. The good news is we had a reval in 2021 where we absorbed some of that inflation that's happened. But I would expect that we're going to have more, like, and people are going to see sticker shock. Suddenly my house is worth so much more, and that makes people nervous. So that's just something to keep in mind, that we're going to be facing, I think, more resistance than normal because people are going to get these notices about their assessments. The other good part or mixed part with the reval is that the mill rate is going to go down. The number, we all know, right? It's likely going to go down, but then taxes do go up in a variable way depending on the assessment, the revised assessment. So, like the last reval, 1 in 4 homeowners saw their taxes go down. So of course, 3 out of 4 saw their taxes go up, and some of them saw their taxes go up significantly, meaning double-digit increases. So that's something that we may face next year as well, assuming the housing market doesn't collapse in the next couple months, which you never know. So that's the reval. And then the next slide is, you know, then there's just the other general budget factors, all the things that we deal with every year, where healthcare costs are going to go up, and energy costs are going to go up, and salaries are going to go up, etc. Everything listed there. And then I did note potentially some good news is funding from the cannabis dispensary, but we don't really know how much that impact is going to be. But I wanted to give you something. So then on the next slide, I just outlined, okay, so what can we do? So we know we're going to have a difficult budget year next We can do, I think, what we typically do, which is just wait until next budget season and then say, get the Region 19 increase, go, oh no, and then say to the school and the town, all right, you're gonna cut. And it'll be programs and it'll be steps. Or, can we begin a conversation with the stakeholders from the town, from the school, from Region 19, bring that into the conversation, and say, what can we do? What are the ideas? And I think everything should be on the table, and I'm not advocating for one particular thing, because quite frankly, if I had the answer to this, I would just say, I'm not hiding anything. I'm not like, ooh, I know the answer, but I'm only going to tell you, 6 months in. I don't know the answer. I don't have the answer. If it were easy, we would do it. But I think we have a lot of very intelligent people that could come together and come up with some creative ideas. I think we also could, if with time and effort, we could research what other communities are doing and find perhaps new solutions. Which is just something we can't do, from February to March to the budget. And I sort of mentioned here, like 5 structural changes. So then on the next slide, I just sort of go through like, what are structural changes? Meaning, because we can cut a budget, right? You can just say, okay, we're going to cut the DPW budget by X. But that's not structural. That's just cutting in order to get to a number. But can we make structural changes to the way that we run things? And that's, there's all things to discuss, but sharing resources between the town and the school, sharing resources between the towns and between Region 19. They are an entity in themselves that has expertise. Could we partner with them on something? One thing I didn't list here is buses. That's something I hear people talk a lot about with Region 19. But it's finance, it's IT, it's administration, it's special ed, all these things, and it's also fire, EMS. Every town needs fire and EMS. So is there ways that we can share or offer services to other towns? These are all ideas that I know have been discussed. But can we have a broader conversation and actually try to move something forward? Let's see. I think before, I just sort of included at the end of this, like what I had initially proposed for a committee. I don't know that I want to get too bogged down in that, because that was just my initial thought. I guess I would just say, what is the Board of Selectmen's thoughts with me bringing up this conversation? What do you think? Is a committee the answer? Is it a terrible idea? Are there ways to have these conversations? That's my question.
So you have questions at the end of this. Why don't we go through the rest of it?
Well, no, I was just gonna, I guess, yeah, if you want to go to the end,
Well, you have your proposal here.
right. I don't want to, that's the thing, Catherine, I don't want to get too bogged down in my specific committee proposal, because it was really just a very, here's an idea. It's not the only idea. But if we want to get to the end, I guess we could ask those questions.
I think you had questions at the end that you wanted answers to.
Yeah, so this, yeah.
Okay.
Can the Board of Finance form a committee? I don't know.
So I'm not sure if the Board of Finance, and thank you for your ideas. Okay. I'm not sure if the Board of Finance has the authority to create such a committee, because it's made up of more than your Board of Finance members. Also, I'm not sure that the Board of Selectmen can grant you the authority to do that. So what I propose seems to make sense at this point in time is have our town council look at this and actually provide some guidance on what we can do. And I'd like to send this to them for that guidance. Before we start trying to do something without understanding what the basic rules are for doing it.
I mean, that's fine with me, but I would also just like to hear, like, Christina, you're barking up the wrong tree. This is a waste of everybody's time. Like, I don't want to waste anybody's time.
It's a little bit, it's a little bit difficult to respond without understanding what the rules are that we have to operate within, to understand how we can affect something like this.
I applaud you for trying to be proactive on this. I mean, but we do have to understand that.
Yeah, I also think you may not be aware of what's done. We don't just do this during budget time. We do it all year long. So you may not be aware of the things that are being done. Yes.
One of the things I was gonna say is if this committee was to be formed, I think that's exactly one of the first things that would be a line item is the things that we have done that meet these sort of criteria. So, you know, as an example, I know that the firehouse used to work with Ashford for years, and then suddenly that sort of fell apart. Don't know why, whatever. So anyway, what I'm getting at is I think to be able to put together the things that do meet these criteria, those are important. But I also think that having us look at this in broad brushstrokes and maybe throwing out some maybe insane ideas isn't the worst idea. Here's an idea. Why don't we join with another town and have one of us dissolve? Boy, would that save a lot of money. Right? I mean, that's a crazy idea. Let's have Ashford not be Ashford anymore and join Ashford, or vice versa, or Wellington. There's an idea. Or why, you know, all I'm saying is there are ways that we could probably save huge amounts of resources. But it would take really bold thinking. It is not going to be done for next budget season. So some of these things may be things that could be appropriate for a budget season, but some of these things could be 10 years down the road.
And actually, I have already mentioned this. I didn't think to mention it again to the Board of Selectmen. Is I've already started a draft, if you will. It was presented at one of the it was given out at one of the listening sessions for the POCD, was a strategy, how to develop a town strategy. And a strategy needs to look out 30 years, 40 years. What does Ashford really want to be? And so when I looked at this, it was, you know, a strategy looks like this, and there's a lot in it. And typically you have to hire somebody to herd all the cats. The POCD is a piece. You know, before I thought the POCD, that's it. That's it. And our regs come off of that kind of thing. No, it's just a piece of an overarching town strategy looking out beyond. And there are a lot of developments going on now, different kinds of developments in technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and ideas that are out there. So to me, that would be part of the town strategy, which takes a while to do.
Correct. I think basically what I'm seeing here is I see 4 Board of Finance members who are at least here tonight saying we need some tools to help us pass a budget next year. We see it coming. We need help. We need the community to understand that we are looking at everything, not just, you know, February 15th. Well, have you thought about? Well, yeah, we have thought about. In fact, we did it in this meeting. We looked at this and this, and here's the hurdles. This is what we're trying to do. I think they're looking for some tools to be able to sell a budget that's going to be really tough. Is how I read it, and then I'll shut up.
Yes, Paul.
Well, just to answer Luke's question, it was budget reasons that Ashford left. And we've negotiated the last 3 years to try to get them. But there are some just like any other thing, there's a lot of other stuff that mixes in with that, so it just hasn't worked out. It's these for decisions, they have a lot. But regards to the committee and the input, I think a committee, it's a great idea. I was the one who said, when Christina brought it up, that it needs to go to the board of selectmen after we do a committee. But on the flip side of that, as a board of finance member, I hear a lot from people in the public about why we do this, why we do that, and I encourage them to come to the meeting. Because we don't need a committee to have somebody sit over here during our meeting and during our public comment period and say, are you looking at this? Are you looking at that? And we can say, as Chuck said, it could be some crazy idea, but write it down, because maybe it's not that. Maybe it isn't as crazy as it seems. There's no reason we couldn't do a public forum or make a special meeting for the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to sit down and just listen to people, much like the POCD did. When we all sat there and they gave a presentation and then 100 people voiced their opinion, there's no reason that we can't do that. That's just a public meeting. Thanks. Oh, that's just like me. So, because every idea, some of them, like Captain said, we've already talked about and we've said we did, maybe we did. People just don't know it because they don't come to the meeting and they don't listen to what's going on behind closed doors, so to speak. But I think getting public input and listening to the people and then answering their questions when they actually bring these things up, and not just saying, yep, we did that, but like I did with Chuck, we've done that, we've negotiated with Eastford. We've given them a proposal and they've decided to go somewhere else, just like any other business. It's a business. So I think that's part of it, and Chuck is also right. We're here because we know it's going to be a tough sell again next year. And it's going to get harder and harder unless something significant changes. I don't disagree with the committee. I think that would be a great idea, but at the same time, I don't see a reason why we can't have a joint session where we invite people, come in and talk about it. Just say it, we'll write everything down. And then we can look at it as a group, or a Board of Finance can look at it in their meeting, a Board of Selectmen can look at it in their meeting, and talk about some of the ideas that maybe are feasible. And then answer the ones that have already been done. Hey, we did this, we did that. So that we're not doing it in the mid-February or mid-March going, oh, yeah, we gotta find a way to cut $50,000 or $100,000. That's not really, I don't want to say it's not fair to the public, because I also feel like they should be involved if they really care. I think it's our job as elected people, members of these boards, to do that and seek out their questions. All right, thank you.
Brandon, if I could just add, that's why I don't want to get hung up on the committee idea.
Actually, Bill, I'm sorry, Jeff was going to speak.
I'll give the floor, Christine.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I don't want to get hung up on the committee of the Board of Finance idea, because again, that was just one idea. Maybe it's all done within the context of the Board of Finance, or maybe it's a joint tri-board meeting. You know, that's the Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. Or maybe it's more of a grassroots thing that, you know, we look for members of the community to really drive and lead it, and we kind of take a backseat. I think there are a lot of different approaches, and I don't want us to feel that we have to be pigeonholed in one way. And I also am like cognizant of the fact that, like, the best way to have something like die is send it to committee, right? This is like, that's like, oh, you did a blue ribbon commission and now nothing happened. I don't want to be a part of something like that. You know, I looked very carefully at, Parish Hill, their school district, Region 11, is that their number? They spent, or they got a grant, spent a significant amount of money on a huge study, like 100 pages. I don't know if you guys probably looked at it. It's a long report. I'll send it to you. And they went through all the things about whether this region makes sense, or can we regionalize everything? Can we break away? What makes the most sense? And it's a 100-page document, and nothing happened, right? They put together this report. They paid somebody for it. 5 years ago. It's living on their website, but they did nothing with it. And I don't want that, right? I don't want to be part of something that's just an exercise in futility. But I do think that there are probably creative solutions that can be found if we get the right people in the room and we think about the bigger picture and try to put aside territories and tradition and try to just be creative in our thinking. I'll leave it at that.
Yes, Jeff?
Paul hit upon a number of the items that I was going to mention also, and I understand Christine, I appreciate the fact she doesn't want to get out on the formation committee, but I agree with Paul that it's kind of right now the duty of it's the elected duty of the Board of Finance to really look at these things. And I know February, March into April are the tough times to try and bring this together. But let's start, why doesn't the committee itself start in June and have it be a part of their meeting each time to look at some of these ideas? And I think a listening session to gain public input is also great. We benefited greatly with the POCD and PCC for doing that and getting people to come in. But people do have the opportunity, as Paul said, do have the opportunity to go to the Board of Finance. And whether they are specifically invited because they've given an idea before and to find out why that is viable or not viable. But I think the Board of Finance, not that the buck stops here, but they're the ones that have the ability and have a knowledge base. They've been working at this for a while to know whether something has a good start or not a good start. And even like Chuck said, even if it's a wild idea, is it still a wild idea? Or is it something that has changed over the years and something we can't really look at? But again, I think it's the responsibility of the Board of Finance to follow through on that and bring in people they feel either can produce. Again, their POCD, we had a number of ideas that came through. Some were off the charts, and you're never going to see you spend $200,000 on a pavilion or something like this. But there were a number of good ideas that we could choose from and help to implement here. But again, in that listening session, get the good with the bad. And I think that a monthly or whatever, every 2 weeks or whatever it is, I think the Board of Finance will catch up and will do a number of good things, looking at this, plan on it and look at it.
All right. So take it under advisement. We are going to talk with council, provide the information to them and ask them what our methodology can be that is above board for addressing this. Sound right?
Yeah, I think one of our responsibilities is town officials.
Yes.
And it's one of the most challenging parts, is to get more people involved, get more input. So, working together is your board, our board, the more we can do, and if we can attract more people. I mean, things are going the opposite way. We're getting people to step up. They're involved with the economy. Just still getting over COVID in a number of ways that I don't even think we're recognizing. So I think it's an idea of working together to get more people to join us to help. I think that's the undercurrent over what we're talking about. There's things that the general public don't know about that you folks do, that we do. Whether we're talking about being a member of NECOG, or I served on CCM's board of directors for a number of years. Collectively, we could do the research and save a town or a regional district. The need or necessity to put out money to do that. But it's working together.
Yeah. And there are a number of things that we're involved in regionally where we have agreements. So I think the kind of putting down what has been done, what has been looked at, kind of when it was looked at, because you always want to stay current. And then, what kinds of information we already have, we already obtain, and that we look at throughout the entire year. For example, working with NECOG, working with Eastern Highlands, working with our legislators, and working with other towns. I mean, directly with other towns. I know there's some things that the school has done, Ashford School has done, that are a regional approach that you may not be aware of. Let's make sure that we provide information that says these are the things we do in kind of a more regional and creative way today already. And some of them we've been doing for some time. So it may be, I do agree that the public doesn't understand. Many of the public don't understand what each of these departments is responsible for, nor do they understand what we do in our roles as selectmen. And in terms of who we interact with on a regular basis and where we apply influence. And so that's something that we can certainly bring out. And we're always looking for ideas. I can tell you that when I sat in the hot seat the last time, not this tour, but the last time, I set up on, what was it, Wednesday evening, once a month or something like that, for people to come in, 2 hours available to them to come in and convey ideas, anything. I'm really not looking at to tell you the truth, not looking at the complaints, only looking at the ideas. Because if you get wadded up in the complaints, you never get anywhere. You're really looking for people that will come in with, I have this concern, but I have this idea about it. Or is there something kind of thing, but not to do what we see on Facebook, which are people who clearly do not know what town government does and is accountable for. But anyway, nobody came. So I was going to do it again this tour, and I was reminded that nobody came to the last one. So, the opportunity is always there, and my door is open. So, people come with all different kinds of concerns. And one of the things I didn't mention is someone came in and said they want to put a dog park in Ashford. And to be quite candid, my brain was going ka-ching, ka-ching, and lawsuits behind, here, and then going, okay, wait, I just need to listen to this. And, but two people do come in with ideas. They do definitely come in with concerns. No one, thinking about this, no one has walked into my office that I can recall over the last number of months saying my taxes are too high. That's their complaint. It's been very specific things in town. The crosswalk, okay, the lighting on the crosswalk, the lighting out here, the, things that are very much tangible to them. So when we say we have lots of intelligent people in this town, we definitely do. We saw them come out of the woodwork, what, a year and a half ago. And so I believe that there's definitely ideas out there. The thing is, you want to make sure that you're not just taking in a complete hodgepodge without them knowing, hey, these are the things that are already in place. If we want to enhance them, great. If you have other ideas off of those, or are those not really viable in the long run? What's your vision for what you think it's going to be later on? Yes.
Just the last thing I just want to say, if the listening sessions do take place, pizza and coffee's always up.
We can't afford it. We really can't afford it. So, and we had a hard time, dealing with the fact that, we had to put flags up. So, anyway, we will take it under advisement. Thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it and your thoughts, and we'll work with it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Ashford School roof replacement project status. We still do not have the warranty. There are some disputes going on between the parties, and we will kind of table that for now because we're kind of waiting to see how they work it out. The solar project status, we had 3 bidders for the RFP PPA that we put out. The bids were opened on Friday as scheduled at noon. And we've taken the information and our owner's rep, which is not MHR. What's the group? Our owner's rep is reviewing all of them, and we will provide you with copies of each so that you can review them as well. I doubt that we're going to get the solar on the roof starting in 2 weeks, or whatever, which was, school lets out in 2 weeks. Which reminds me, Roger, you had said you were going to go to the graduation. No? Okay, you're not going to the graduation. You are, you and your wife. Okay, so I'll make sure that they know it's you and your wife and Jeff and me.
When is that?
June, I don't know, June 10th? I can't remember.
I have an invitation home.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, board and commission appointments. We don't have anybody for any of these that are listed. We have a commission on aging, I'm sorry.
We did those already with the last meeting.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong thing? Oops. Okay, our apologies. Thought that looked familiar. And the same thing, we have, so we have none there. However, we do have as the next item, Parks and Recreation Commission membership. So, did I provide, I bet I didn't provide you with this. The Parks and Recreation membership, we had 2 people resign from the Park and Recs Commission. And
Who were they?
do you remember who they were? Chris?
Dan Kino was one.
Yeah. And the other one was Bean.
Garth?
Sorry,
Garth Bean?
Garth Bean.
Or
And so that they made a recommendation, I think we sent it out to you, to appoint, to move up 2 alternates to regular membership.
I don't remember seeing it.
Oh,
Do you have names?
yes, we do. They're already there. They're alternates. One is Dave Roston. And who is that other one? And the other one is the one who I believe has been acting as secretary.
Steve Gillen,
No, it's a woman,
Amanda
Amanda.
Holden.
Yes.
I will move, a motion to move both of the, members of, alternates up to regular membership.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye, and delighted that they're willing to move up to that. They're also trying to recruit additional members. So, the other thing is I had worked with them a bit on what their job description is for the part-time member. I'll send that out to you. I'd like you to take a good look at it. I want to make sure that we can put it out on the website. It's pretty, like I said, I worked with them during their meeting to work on it.
While we're talking about recognition, I'd like to just bring up, I know that we received an information email from the town clerk about alternate and chairmanship appointments and that sort of stuff. And I just want to, I know I don't have to refresh your memories, but I want to mention, I know when I took office the last time as for selectmen, there had either been 2 or 3 years during that period when we did not have a chairman.
Yes,
for that
even when
commission, and
yes.
it was taking its toll. And I had talked to the town council about it because I was concerned about it. Because what my understanding was at the time was that our director, doing as much as she could, but she was sort of filling in as chairman. And I thought the town was being put into somewhat of a compromising situation. Legality and a number of other reasons, and I'm not gonna get into it this time. You have a paid staff. I mean, it's like having your superintendent as chairman of the Board of Ed. It's,
Yes, I understand.
it just doesn't work, and there's a potential there of problems. I had appealed, I went to a couple of Recreation Commission meetings, and I've been trying to work very closely with our director to appeal to the members to step up to take chairmanship. And I dealt with that for several months, and with no response, and I was told nobody wanted it. Consulted with town council, knowing what our ordinance was with the rec commission and everything else, explained my frustration with them. And the consensus that I got from them was at a point where you have a board or a commission that's not taking the actions that they should be, you have two options. Either take action yourself to correct the problem or to disband the committee. Certainly didn't want to consider disbanding the rec commission. So, and we had talked about it at a board. David had come into me, Rosslyn, and indicated that he was a former chairman and he was interested in filling a position. And I said, funny you should say that, would you be interested in becoming chairman again? And he expressed his interest in that. In fact, we had a couple of long meetings about it. So I took it on as the first selectman with the approval of the board. We appointed Dave as an alternate and as chairman until the rec commission could come up with a better alternative.
I didn't think we saw, did we see in that motion that as chairman as well? Yeah, okay.
So anyway.
But he has to be seated, normally you have to be seated to be a chair, but, which is not a problem. All he needed to do was be seated.
That's why I was surprised at the last meeting when you mentioned that they were seating him at every meeting or whatever.
No, they had not been. And then
Well,
they started
The
to.
problem with that is having a chairman, it's not really, they don't know whether they're chairman or not. It's just to conduct normal operations of a commission. As
Understood,
chairman,
understood.
not knowing if you're chairman or not for the next meeting just is almost
There should be no,
self-defeating.
there should be no doubt now.
So I just bring that up because we had talked about this several years ago, and that was the progress of how the chairman was appointed
Okay,
basically by our board.
okay,
I'm done.
all right. So, I'm glad, that you have moved these two into regular positions. They're there for every meeting.
Great.
And I didn't know until very recently that, again, if we were going to disband that, first of all, it's an ordinance that set it up and how it's conducted, whatever. I didn't know that they were the only board in town or commission in town that can determine if they want someone to take somebody off the commission. So very interesting. It's the only one that I know of. Okay. Continued discussion regarding appointment of a town of Ashford historian. Did I provide you with a copy of the description of the town historian?
Didn't see the description. I haven't seen it. We did get an email from town clerk, sheriff.
Oh, yes, I saw that email. I will provide you with that. I've already posted it because we wanted it posted. So it's on the town website, and it is a full-fledged thing of what the requirements are for a town historian, what we're looking for. And it's pretty.
Was that an existing document?
It was one that I pulled from the internet and looked at it and went, wow, this pretty much covers
So
everything.
It wasn't specific to Ashford, it was a.
No, I just said, no, it's not specific.
I've never seen one. I
No.
think it'd be nice to have one in place. but I
Yes,
haven't
and I'm
seen
sorry if I didn't remember to put it in your box because I could have sworn I either sent it to you or did that, but I will make sure you have a copy. And what we put, what I put was the end date for people to apply is June 30th. So instead of having it out there for just a couple of weeks, we'll keep it out there for the entire month of June.
So we won't have a chance to put it into the citizen.
No, we didn't have
I
a
know, but
chance.
It was the
So-
last day, it was on the 19th when we had our meeting. which was-
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it doesn't pass the windows, but believe me, people in the Historical Society know, et cetera, et cetera. And part of the, that group and others,
Yeah.
I believe they're all talking,
Okay,
okay? And what we're looking for is somebody who's qualified.
absolutely.
And now, finally, Alex, first of all, I hope you're feeling better. Thank you, and thank you for coming. This is to talk about the lighting for the lower parking lot. And you have a copy of what he's put together. Thank you for bringing it up, for coming up. And I want to make sure that we understand where all the, what the cost is really gonna be. And so here's two options.
There's gonna be a cost adjustment.
Yeah.
Right now, all the vendors saying, have to- prices are very volatile right now.
Understood.
Did you say low?
No, volatile.
Oh. I was gonna say, that's the first time I heard low.
Not.
So we'll, let's talk about the two options that we talked, it was two options, right? So at least take us through that, and then we can talk about.
We're going to have trying to replace the lights outside. So lights obsolete. It's the technology on the obsolete area. Okay, they're type of LED. It's like if you go to Home Depot and you buy an LED fixture, you don't replace the parts. You replace the whole fixture. Well, cost of that whole fixture is much more than the $50.
I never cared for those lights, and I never thought they were very
I mean, well, you can still get, I sent you a picture of the decorative ones similar to that. It should be in there, you have that?
Yeah, I think,
This was like this, right, yeah. Well, what we're going to now is the whole picture, but it has an LED bulb. So when it goes bad, you just change the bulb. And anybody can change the bulb. That's one of the points of, you're not getting electricians to change all of it. And I've done these over in Mansfield, where we do the parking lot, we have box lights like this, like across at the senior center there and everything. Those are still LEDs, but now we just changed the bulb.
okay.
And they last for a long time. The problem with all these other ones is you have to have like a transformer, and those usually goes bad on LEDs. And they keep on changing, and they're getting obsolete in no time. So
these are just about,
there's an old in there with the whole thing, you should change the whole thing. Yeah. And the other one was the shoebox, like we call it. And they give what's the most commercial is you can't move the sky. I don't know those things down. But these other pictures, they do, spread out. Like you get down to Main Street and Mansfield there, Like yeah, those are, they're not really like that pipe. We're talking about this. This pipe is just gonna be down, all the rest of the year.
my question at the last meeting, and I do appreciate you coming. I know in our zoning codes for new developments or whatever, like, I think the first time I remember this was up extra mark,
Right,
where we insist on a particular.
right, and we have problems with them too, because
Okay.
when they put them in there, they put them, we made them change those fixtures, because they put them, and the glass hung down, and they were still spread out.
Okay,
And then we had the same problem when Cumberland's on their signs for the, gas signs. They were too bright. I don't know if you remember
okay.
that. And with the LEDs, you can put dimmers on them.
Now, these units are the same as we put
Well,
over,
they're similar.
Similar.
Yeah.
and they meet the code?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, but if you still want to go to the decorative ones, the thing is, there's a cost of, after my vendor always was worried about the poles, if they're strong enough. Because they were cast, those poles are cast, so they break very easy.
the ones that we have now.
Right.
I can tell.
Should we?
I said I can tell.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, you hit it with a snowplow, they're gonna break out.
Right.
So, I mean,
these are very nice and decorative, the ones we have, and they get, if you have them, they'll give you plenty of light. But they have never been very bright in my estimation.
No,
And now what we had there, those weren't the original ones we had up there.
just my thought was 3 of these along the back.
Yeah.
And if we needed to replace, like, I know we have one towards the library,
Yeah, there's a couple of them, yeah.
and if we could replace them with the parts of the ones that we took from the back, do that. I didn't know economically that would be the best.
Yeah, I gotta go through because they're already getting dim.
They're all
The LEDs
tired.
they're getting, slow down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to readdress to my vendor about the poles, if we're gonna have to change the poles. We're trying not to change the poles because they're quite expensive. We're trying to keep, but I think the idea of lighting the back parking lot with those type of lights is the idea, because it's not gonna infringe on the neighbors. Because I know that.
We have a whole line of, right on the other side of the river, there are homes.
Right,
And we've never had a problem with them, and I was surprised when we installed the lights we have now.
right,
But it would be nice to have these sort of things that are directional.
yeah. Because I told people that the corner post over there would bother the neighbors down that street there.
Okay.
That would just spread right out.
Yeah. And these wouldn't.
Well, they're just gonna go down.
Yeah.
They're not gonna, if you, like I say, you go over there and see something, you're supposed to look down and see it. They're not supposed to blind you. You're supposed to look at the whole land all the way around there and see down there, but when you look straight across, it shouldn't be
It's not
bothering
like that. Like the ones that we've installed over.
you. Yeah,
Tremco.
So one thought, if I recall, was to put those in the back
right, we're just gonna go the same.
and stick with the
Yeah.
kind of the more traditional
Yeah,
looking
right.
design in the front, and that would provide adequate lighting back
Yeah.
there.
Now, does one of your cost proposals address it that way, Alex? or-
Yeah, I just put them down as a single light. I did it per light.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
per-
they-
Oh, this
Yeah.
isn't a total job.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted him to
broke it- I
explain.
did some of them with the bigger ones, I did them singular, and I did them all together, how much they have. So like the pool lights. So, yeah. So there. Was one of the pool and everything, like, $1,650. But on those, we were gonna get a little bit of a rebate from Eversource on those. I mean, all these other ones, you can't get any more rebates. You already got your rebate once. And those, they said they can get a rebate on those back ones. So I think that, rebate on the 3 of them.
And again, the 1,600 is not the decorative ones, the
No.
ones that you can't.
Those
Those are the 3.
Yeah, 3. And I,
We're talking about $6,000 or less.
yeah,
So,
but I have to see if we need, if they'll fit on the poles and everything. So I'm gonna have to call again and find out. If you want to go, we'll reinvestigate, put the 3 up for those. And then we can see, 'cause that's really been the dark part, right back there.
that's the darkest and where we have most concerns about life and
Right,
safety.
right. I mean, that is at night, I know.
Particularly, you know,
Well, now we want to do them now, if we can,
So, and the other thing too is we have some that are out in the front
Correct.
as well. So we'd start with the 3 in the back.
I think they'll go between the back and then, we can count up again how many are bad, but I would, if you want to keep it a decorative one, you should try to get a decorative one, look up and see if you really like that fine one. You put it up, you can put it up on a place that's almost by itself, like the one way down the corner.
Yeah, the one where you said
Yes,
somebody's been complaining.
yeah,
Yeah, and what we want to do is make sure that, whatever it is not shining into the homes back there.
Right.
As much as,
yeah, I mean, that is bad, yes, that's why in commercial, that's why they get rid of those,
right,
Do a full cutoff. It's been, the towns have gotten away with it, almost every town gets away with having. I've always questioned that.
I always worry about, that old saying, do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
No,
Yeah, but if you go on the street, and you see people's lights, they'll have a post light, there's the control
Oh.
light, and then it's blinding.
Yeah.
And they think that, you really, once you see that light, you start squinting because you can't see.
Yeah.
The other one's supposed to just look and just give the seat what's around there, you know?
Well, that's why the ones across the street, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
So much improved over what it was.
Right.
Decorative looks nice, you know, most architects like it. but-
Yeah, but they're not functional. So,
What's interesting is we went to the trouble of having the architecture of this building, the outside architecture look like something traditional, rather than a box, okay? And we have more traditional lights over in front of Norton as well. So there's a certain amount of whatever we can look at that might be able to carry some of that would be great, understanding what the cost is and the efficiency and the lifetime.
or do you take the ones that's on Knowlton, are really terrible lights, you look at them, they're so bright. mean,
I had them dim them. I had them go to medium, not
Yeah,
the bright.
Still pretty bright, you know?
Too bright?
Well, I just kind of, I find glare, I look at it like this. It's like, if you got a squint, they're too bright.
Well, that's interesting. I've never heard a complaint about them. What I heard before was that they were too dim. Okay.
Those, they're too short, they're too small.
Out in front of, no,
Oh. I think they're
but
too
you're
small
saying they're
for
too
a
bright.
building.
Well, they're bright because they're low, they're only like 6 foot, bulbs are 6 foot, so that's the height everybody's looking at. If they were 10 feet tall, then it'd be, you know, wouldn't be as bad. That's why they try to put poles a little taller, just so you can, you know, you're not looking straight into them.
Okay, understood.
So do we need a motion?
To pursue what, the three?
Oh, I could, yeah, let me just go get an update price and I hear it, all my vendor.
So the three were,
Like
we have over
go
there.
with the box type, like, yeah,
and you're gonna check on the front. I know we need at least one on.
right. I know I there's 2 there. but-
Yeah, two.
Okay.
But, let me let's get these, and we put those in and say, you know, I'll get a price, I'll pay the price on it. And then, you know, and then I'll come back to that.
Why is it seems over the years we've had ongoing problems with the timers and that on the outside building. I mean,
Time's not here.
was it wired wrong?
No, I think it's electric, I don't know exactly how they done, we got a computer that runs these lights, and I don't know how they do it.
So there was something, bear with me. I just need to check my memory banks on that because they were running them through the phone in the room, in the utility room where all the switches are for these. And there was a phone line in there that they were running things through instead of directly into the box. And I know that was a problem.
I know the ones.
I know, even I know how to
on
set
door
the
over there,
times.
Timers was bad because
Yeah.
the timers on there, whoever was adjusting the time, adjust the time twice a year. They did not read what it says on the front of them, okay, the timers, most of the timers, you have to pull the dial out and to turn it, adjust it. If you turn it, you turn the gears, you switch the gears.
So
Every time I've changed them, when someone either turn it backwards, or because there's an arrow on it that says which way you turn them.
Yeah.
And some of them you have to pull the dial out and change the time.
It's also done in our system, the online system that we have that controls lighting and things in the building.
Yeah.
So I've got that for outside lights as well.
Yeah, but I think the front ones aren't on that. There's a separate timer for that, it's a mechanical timer.
Yes, there is a mechanical timer, but I think there's also something in the system. So I know because I see it. It's in the tracer system.
So you'll firm up on your,
I'm gonna firm this up and I'm gonna call tomorrow to make sure about the poles,
excellent.
how we do it. And if we have to, I can use the road crew to change the poles there, to, you know, save the cost on that. Because they've
We'll
done,
need that.
Dave's done help with us before over there.
Good.
They'll look at everything. They're very,
Okay.
So what we could do then maybe is for our next meeting, have that information and we could,
Yeah.
then we can act on it.
How much lead time do you need?
Some of these were like 4 or 5 weeks.
How long?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you thinking, Bill?
I'm thinking authorizing you as long as we're roughly within the cost that we're looking at here.
Which is how much?
About 1,700. So.
1,700 a light. So that includes installation cost? I thought it just was
That was
the
just the-
light itself.
That was just the light. That was just the light. And I had, you know, the other ones I had said like about 425, 450 for labor. I'll just put that up too.
Okay,
Well, 2,000.
so not to exceed, kind of awkward to do this.
2,200.
So not, how, not,
For like,
I hate to do this in front of the person who is actually coming up with the numbers,
Yep.
but not to exceed 7,000. 2,200 a light for 3 lights is 6,600.
yeah, for amount not to exceed, or we'll bring back to the
And-
board.
Something like that.
And see if we can get, you know, what the rebates are. The rebates change all the time.
Okay.
Okay,
We
so
can spend less than
yes, you need to spend less than that. Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a,
I'll second.
And those funds will be appropriated from our contingency fund, is that the plan?
that's all we've got.
Friendly amendment to my amendment, then is it? for the
I need you to
funds?
state the motion.
I thought I did, but,
I didn't hear the whole thing, sorry.
the motion is to authorize the first selectman to proceed, because of life and safety concerns with, repair, replacement of the lighting in the rear parking lot of town office for an amount not to exceed 7,000 without additional, board consideration. Be paid out of contingency.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you, Allison. You feel
Thank you
better?
ever so much for coming in.
Not bad, this, you know. So you follow them, that it's got plain.
It's a lot of fun getting older. Isn't it?
This is the second time I've had, like, 30 years ago, so, you know, it's very painful when it happens. Someone's like, you can't do it, you can't sit, you can't stand, you can't sleep, you know, for about a week, it's really.
Yeah.
And they're doing, you know, they're doing therapy, they're stretching you.
Oh, we'll be talking.
No, you're getting taller. But it's the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
It's a harness on you, and you lay on your back, and they have a thing you.
Just takes the pressure.
And they put like 20 pounds of pressure on it, and they just grab your nose, and then they're saying that you need to relax, you know. Last time I felt it, because they do it like, I don't know, 15, 16 times. It does, because the pressure of your disc, everything is starting to squeeze and everything. And once that goes, then your hips get out of line, everything. You know,
Everything else.
so.
What was that song? The hip bone's connected to the whatever and they just keep going? Okay,
Thank you
so
very much.
thank you. Now we're gonna go into executive session. If someone will
All right.
move us in. And this executive
Thank you
session,
very much.
Excuse me,
thank you.
can I ask a question first?
You sure may.
Going back to the state funding. I guess I'm not sure what. I'm unclear as to what Christina's big deal is,
I think what she wanted to see,
because 480,000 is part of the capital budget.
right, but she expected to see all of it there and then see the NIPS funding and
but
whatever.
That's not part of the capital budget.
No, it's not. Okay, but we're saying that we're paying, we said we were paying 80,000 for,
Right.
match.
Right.
But what we have for the state is we have 100 and something thousand.
Because they fund money.
It's an offsetting cost.
Doesn't. Let me think about how to say this. It doesn't really come under the auspices of the Board of Finance. It's under the auspices of Treasurer. You know, whole project cost has been all over Facebook.
So I assume that's where she's coming from.
I think she's treating it in a really black and white way. And it's that, I think what she was saying is they expected to see all of it in the capital improvement budget and show that, you know how we show funding sources down at the bottom? To show the NIPS funding, and then to show that some of it was coming from DPW, although we have never done that before.
No, we've never
For
done
when
that.
it's coming from one of our general government lines.
And we've
And,
never
and the
used-
expenditure has to be
We-
targeted.
We've never used.
It
fund
does,
money, I
So
think,
it's not like.
Yeah.
in the revenue portion of the capital budget.
yeah. Well, like I said, going forward, we'll be mindful of it and look and see what's appropriate to put in the capital improvement budget and what's not. I think what she was talking about was a pretty black and white approach to it, not necessarily one that fits how our accounting works. So, anyway, she got the answer to her question about, you know, where that money was coming from. Okay, so a motion was made to go into executive session. And this is, it looks like it is 8:39. And I'm going to shut off the recording, and we'll finish the rest of the meeting without it and include it in the minutes.